Hi guys, how you doing? Before we start the story, I just want to ask for a little support. Please help me reach 1,000 subscribers. It means the world to me. Don't forget to hit that like button, drop a comment, and of course, subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much, and now let's get into today's story.
This is a real story taken from Reddit. Make yourself a cup of tea and grab some cookies because this story is intense. Enjoy! I met Elena at a rooftop party 5 years ago. She laughed like someone who loved life and lived it loudly. I was Marcos, the quieter type, the one who liked plans and lists and stability. We fit together for a while. People said we were the perfect mismatch. I believed that until her idea of fun became a secret life I could not touch. At first, it was small stuff. A late drink after work, a girls' weekend in the next city that sounded harmless. I would call and she would say, "It's just the girls, relax." I tried to be reasonable. I told myself not to be the controlling husband. But late nights accumulated into a pattern. Her story started to feel edited, like someone had cut pieces out of a film and left the best scenes only for herself. The first real crack came when I found a photo on her phone. It was of her smiling in a bar in a city 3 hours away. The timestamp said midnight. She was wearing the same jacket she told me she never wore anymore. When I asked, she said she had been out for a work dinner. Her eyes looked tired when she lied. Later in bed, I remembered a time in our first year when she promised me honesty. That promise echoed through the apartment like a ghost. I kept that photo in my head. A month after that, our neighbor, a quiet woman named Rosa, knocked on my door. She looked unsettled. She said, "I saw Elena last week. She left in a taxi with 2 men. It wasn't a girls' night." Rosa told me because she thought I should know. Shame flooded me more than anger. I went home with my heart heavy, but I still asked Elena calmly, "Are you seeing someone?" She smiled and called me dramatic. "You're being paranoid," she said. Paranoia, I thought, is a dangerous word because it dismisses truth and wraps suspicion in guilt. Flashback. Elena at 20, telling her younger cousin that she would never settle. Flashback. Us on the balcony, her saying, "I don't want to be small." I loved that version of her, but people change, or they reveal pieces of themselves you never noticed. One night, while she was in the shower, her laptop pinged with an email subject that froze me. My hands slid across the keyboard as if someone else was guiding them. The email showed a boarding pass to a coastal city where her ex, Raphael, lived. The dates were circled for the coming weekend. Her girls' trip was a lie. The word lie hit me like a slap. I shut the laptop and sat in the kitchen. Light from the fridge cut across my face, tasting metal in my mouth. I could have confronted her immediately. I didn't. I watched instead. There was a calm cruelty to waiting, as if by letting her go, I could prove she had chosen her secrets willingly. So I made coffee, sat on the balcony, and let the night swallow me. The taxi took her to the airport. I followed her at a distance, shadowing the yellow cabs like some bad detective in a film. The airport was bright and indifferent. She moved through it like someone who belonged there. Her face was lit by her phone, and when she laughed into the screen, it felt like a betrayal electric enough to cut my chest open. 200 miles away, Raphael was waiting. I did not know what they were to each other anymore. Old lovers, old grudges, old debts. In the week before the trip, Elena had become secretive with her phone, protective of her messages like she was hiding fragile glass. I remembered a day when she had kissed me in the kitchen and said, "Promise me you won't ever try to change me." I promised. That promise now sat on a table between us, a relic. The weekend passed in a cruel blur. Elena sent photos of spa treatments. Her captions were sugary and harmless. My eyes burned through the screen. Then a message arrived at midnight. We needed that. It was the first message I saw that had no pretense. I felt hollow and strangely awake, as if those words woke something in me that had been numb for months. When she returned, she was different, the way a photograph looks after being exposed to light too long. Her perfume smelled richer, a little smoky. She avoided eye contact. She told me the trip was healing, that she had needed space. I made coffee and nodded. Inside, I was a volcano of questions. I wanted to ask everything at once, to rip the seams of her silence, but I kept my voice even because I wanted to hear the truth on her terms. We fell into a routine of politeness, meals at the table, quiet conversations, but my mind kept finding new details: a lipstick stain on a napkin in a pocket, a receipt from a bar in a city she didn't visit, a contact saved as Work Sam that always answered late. Each small discovery was a new cut. Then Rosa knocked again. This time, she handed me a printed photo she had taken discreetly, Elena and Raphael at a small cafe, a hand between them on the table. The photo was grainy, but the intimacy was obvious. Rage is a strange thing. It kindles and then cools into a careful shell. I felt protective of myself and cold toward the woman I had loved. I confronted Elena that evening. She sat across from me at the kitchen table, her fingers wrapped around a mug as if it were a life preserver. "I saw a photo," I said. "I know about the flight." She inhaled sharply, the mug trembling in her hands. For a moment, the old Elena appeared, the one who would tell the truth and laugh about the absurdity of being caught. Instead, she said, "It was nothing. Raphael and I, we just talked." Her voice wavered like a thread. This is where things began to shift. The edges of her story sharpened into something I could not ignore. I started to remember things I had shrugged off. Evenings she left without a word, whispered phone calls at 3 in the morning, the way she would avoid family gatherings lately. I had been patient to the point of being blind. That patience tore. A week later, I found a hotel card tucked into the bookshelf. It was from a boutique place in the coastal city, same dates as the flight. The name on the receipt was not Raphael's. It was another man I did not know. A part of me wanted to rage, to demand answers, but another part recognized that anger had already done its work. It had separated us. I started to piece together a timeline like a crime scene. The girls' nights, the late messages, the one-way emotions. Every piece created a map that led away from me. I remembered a night 2 years ago when Elena had screamed, "You always put safety before living." Then she left and came back new, like she had swallowed a different life and learned to breathe it. By the end of the first month of discoveries, the house felt foreign. I slept on the couch sometimes because I could not bear to lie awake beside someone who had quietly folded her lies into our sheets. Friends noticed. My sister asked if we were okay. I lied and said we were. Lying felt like a contagious thing. This is the last micro moment in this part that split me open. Elena's suitcase appeared on the closet shelf, but it was not empty. Tucked into a side pocket was a napkin with a phone number written in a shaky hand, and beside it a small plain boarding pass stub. The date matched the last trip. On the back of the stub, someone had scrawled a tiny phrase in blue ink, "When you are ready." That note, casual, hopeful, private, felt like confirmation of a life I had been slowly invited out of. I did not shout. I did not throw the boarding pass at her. I folded it and put it in my pocket. I walked out of the house and sat in the car with my hands on the wheel, watching the lights of our street blink like distant stars. I felt tired in a way I had never known. The parts of me that loved her ached, but so did the parts that knew I deserved to be told the truth without having to dig for it. There is a cliff here, not the cheap cinematic cliff, but the kind that leans forward into danger. I had enough to change everything, but not the full image. There were more rooms to open, more secrets to find.
I sat across from Elena at that kitchen table for what felt like hours. The evidence lay between us like weapons, boarding passes, hotel receipts, scraps of a life I was never supposed to discover. She tried to reach for my hand, but I pulled away. Her face was pale, her eyes swollen from crying. She whispered over and over that she loved me, that she never wanted to hurt me. But every word felt like poison, because love and betrayal cannot exist in the same breath. I asked her how long. How long had she been doing this? She hesitated too long before answering. She claimed it was recent, just a single trip. But the hesitation gave her away. I pressed harder. Dates began to slip out. One trip became two, two became three. The timeline stretched back further than I ever expected. Months, maybe even a year of hidden flights and secret weekends. She tried to soften it by saying they never planned to rekindle permanently, but what difference did that make? She had been lying in my bed, building another life behind my back. She said it started with a message. He reached out after years, claimed he just wanted to talk, to apologize for how their relationship ended. She swore she resisted, but curiosity won. They met for coffee one afternoon. She insisted it was innocent, but then one afternoon turned into dinner into late-night talks, and soon enough plane tickets were purchased. She said she never meant for it to happen, but I reminded her that affairs don't just fall out of the sky. They are built brick by brick with decisions and lies. The part that cut deepest was when she admitted her friends knew. Her so-called girls' trip was a cover, carefully woven with their help. A group text chain filled with fake photos from old vacations sent to me as proof, while she was really hundreds of miles away with him. I couldn't comprehend it. The betrayal wasn't only hers. It was a conspiracy, a performance staged to keep me blind. In my head, I replayed every moment she told me she loved me before leaving for those weekends. Every hug, every kiss now felt like a performance rehearsed for months. The shame hit me harder than the anger. How could I not have seen it? How could I have been that blind? But then another darker thought struck me. Maybe I did see it. Maybe deep down I noticed the late replies, the distant look in her eyes, the over-explained stories. But I ignored them because trusting her felt easier than accepting the truth. I told her calmly I couldn't live in a marriage where honesty was already dead. She grabbed my arm, sobbing, promising to cut him off, to delete everything, to block his number. But her words fell on deaf ears. Because if she wanted to block him, she would have done it long ago. If she wanted to choose me, she would never have bought that first ticket. Still, I couldn't simply walk out of my own home that night. I went upstairs, packed a bag, and booked a room at a nearby motel. The silence of that place was both comforting and suffocating. I stared at the ceiling, replaying every conversation I had with her parents, with my own family, with our friends. We had been seen as the couple that had it all, stable, reliable, solid, and yet behind closed doors, everything was already broken. The next days blurred into one another. Elena called constantly, left voicemails, long messages, begging to meet, to talk. I ignored most of them until she showed up outside the motel one evening, standing by my car with swollen eyes. I agreed to talk, only to hear what else she might reveal. She confessed she had been considering leaving me weeks before I found the ticket. She said she didn't know what she wanted anymore. Her ex made her feel young again, alive, like she had choices. That sentence seared into me. Choices? She had choices while I had none? She was playing both sides while I was living in the illusion of security. She said she never wanted to lose me, that she thought maybe seeing him one last time would give her clarity. But I knew clarity doesn't come from sleeping in another man's bed. It doesn't come from lying to your husband and weaving an entire network of deceit. Clarity comes from truth, and she had buried that long ago. At this point, I began preparing for the inevitable. I met with a lawyer, quietly. I asked about separation, about division of assets, about what my next months would look like. It felt surreal, like I was living someone else's life. Divorce was a word I never imagined tied to my marriage, but now it was the only lifeline left. When I finally told Elena I wanted a divorce, she shattered completely. She screamed, she begged, she promised therapy, new beginnings, anything. But the trust was gone, and without trust, love is only a shell. I walked away from that house with nothing but a suitcase and the ashes of a relationship that had once defined me. Weeks turned into months. The papers were signed, the house sold, the mutual friends chose sides. Some looked at me with pity, others with suspicion, as if I should have fought harder to forgive. But forgiveness is not a bandage for betrayal. It cannot erase the image of her boarding that plane, smiling at her phone while I believed she was on a girls' trip. The final blow came months later when a mutual friend let it slip that Elena had indeed continued seeing her ex openly once I left. The lie she clung to about it being a mistake dissolved instantly. It was never about closure. It was always about choosing him behind my back. The truth cut deep, but it also freed me. There was no more wondering if I made the right decision, no more sleepless nights questioning myself. She had already made her choice long before I discovered the ticket. And so here I am, months later, rebuilding slowly. The pain still lingers, but it no longer controls me. If there is one thing I have learned, it is this. Betrayal does not begin with the act. It begins with the very first lie. The first time she told me the girls were planning a trip, the first time she sent me a fake picture, that is where the marriage truly ended. Looking back, I realized the warning signs were always there, but love makes us blind. It teaches us to excuse what should never be excused, to trust when trust is undeserved, to hope when hope is already gone. I share this story because maybe someone out there will recognize the same signs before it is too late. Her girls' trip was never real. It was always a mask for a secret life. And though the truth nearly destroyed me, it also gave me something rare, a chance to start again with eyes wide open.